It's Carter, man, and today it's Wednesday, the 6th. Merry Christmas. I'm going to do kind of a quick review of the news, if I may. A potpourri. All right, a potpourri. Three items. Just going to do three items, all of which I think are kind of important. Well, two of them are important. The third we could call Clown World. Okay, and when I get to it, I think you'll understand why. The first is the latest on Ukraine. Now, those of you who have watched me for some time may recall that 2 years ago, when a lot of people were saying, even some conservatives, some friends of mine, oh, Zelensky's another Churchill. Excuse me? Oh, Ukraine is one of the world's great democracies fighting for freedom. I've got my orange and blue flag, lapel flag on, or sign out front, whatever. And I said, Ukraine is not a bastion of democracy. It's one of the most corrupt countries, maybe the most corrupt country in the world. And Zelensky was installed by the United States, Victoria Nuland, an awful person, in order to disrupt the entire Eastern European geographic area, and he's the kind of person that doesn't care what kind of damage he does as long as he makes a bunch of money. So now here we are, 2 years later, well, almost more, and this is a disaster. So today we find out that they had a meeting in the Senate where Zelensky was supposed to appear by video, and he threw a temper tantrum, decided he wasn't going to appear because they had to tip him off that we've lost support for giving you another 60 billion. We've given you hundreds of billions, and you've made good use of it, Zelensky, you little grifter. You made good use of it. You have 4 mansions, as far as we can tell now. We know $20 million mansion in Miami, gorgeous new mansion over in Alexandria, Egypt. Already had one in Paris and one in London. So you're making good use of the money. But right now, it looks like we might not be able to give you anymore. So he throws a temper tantrum. And the problem he has is that the Republicans, even one as tone deaf as Mitch the Turtle McConnell, has finally figured out the American people are tired of us sending billions and billions to Zelensky, paying their pensions of their workers, paying their school teachers, paying their welfare rolls, everything, including sending 500,000 young Ukrainians to their deaths in what from the beginning was clearly a futile effort, triggered by Victoria Nuland because she wanted to have regime change in Russia. And from the beginning, our generals said they can't win, but hopefully we'll disrupt things in Russia. Well, it didn't work out too well, did it? Especially not for the 500,000 young Ukrainians, a whole generation wiped out. Okay, so now you have the Republicans in the Senate, including the Turtle, saying no more money unless we get money for the border. Now, all that is a contrivance. It's a lie. It's a lie. They don't give a damn about our border. If they did, they would have prevented Alejandro Mayorkas from letting his fellow Latinos, illegal alien invaders, 11 million of them, come into the country over the past 3 years. So they don't really care about that. They were looking for a way to get out without making themselves look like they were totally surrendering in Ukraine. So we're tying that. We think it's important to tie these together. Well, how come you never did it before? Well, they're doing it now because it's totally lost now. This thing is over, and it's been over for months, and I kept saying it was over, and they kept telling Zelensky, who was more than willing to do it as long as he got his payoff, to send those poor kids to their deaths, okay? So that's number one, the situation in the Ukraine, which is tragic and which is entirely the fault of Joe Biden being guided by Victoria Nuland. She rules the roost at the U.S. State Department, and she is a vile creature. Just look at that crazed look in that woman's eyes, okay? Check it out, okay? Remember, Abe Lincoln said people over 40 responsible for their own looks. She's pretty frightening looking, okay? Number two, we saw today, we saw Mary Kimmler, I'm sorry, Garland, and Christopher Wray hold a press conference saying they're going to hold 4 Israeli soldiers guilty as war criminals. Excuse me? Excuse me? If there are any war criminals in the world today, it's those two. It's those two. Mary Garland standing there looking as usual like a vulture, and the smug, arrogant, disdainful Wray there backing him up. Men who have waged war on the American people for 3 years now, okay? First, let me say about the Israeli soldiers. Look, Mary Garland, Christopher Wray have never been in battle in their lives, okay? They have no idea what it's like to be sent into battle with your life at stake in a horrible situation with murderous savages like Hamas, okay? And be told to defend yourselves. So, you know, if you haven't, if you haven't played the game, don't make the rules. It's pretty simple, isn't it? But they are. Now notice Hamas that committed monstrous, savage, depraved acts on October 7th. They have not said one of them is a war criminal. How about the 5 guys, heads of Hamas, who sent those troops in to do those vile, dastardly, inhuman, not just inhumane, inhuman deeds on October 7th? How about those 5, Merrick and Christopher? How about naming them war criminals? But no, their war criminals are Israeli soldiers defending their own lives. And Americans who protested on January 6th, they've charged over 1,000 now as insurrectionists, throwing them into the gulag, hundreds of them into the gulag, okay, for protesting, the right to assembly, going into the Capitol when invited in. They have labeled them domestic terrorists, insurrectionists, okay? That's a war crime. That is a total abuse of American law, okay? They've done it over and over again. While at the same time, Christopher Wray now admits he covered up Hunter Biden's laptop. Yeah, I did it. What are you going to do about it? With that smug look on his face. They refused to charge Biden with taking classified materials, which was illegal for him. He was only the vice president, while charging Trump, who was not illegal for. He was the president, for God's sake. Okay? So over and over again, over and over, sending FBI agents after parents who just don't want porno in their school libraries or perverts in the restrooms. Those are war crimes, folks, war crimes on the American people. Sending SWAT teams after parents who protest abortion. Those are war crimes. So that's number 2. Then finally, I'm going to wrap it up. And obviously, I'm very exercised. So let me calm down and get to the clown world aspect of it. And when I say the name, you're going to say, yeah, I'll definitely clown. Ocasio-Cortez. Did you see what she said in Congress yesterday? We can't pass a law requiring restricting guys disguised as girls competing in girls' sports because that would require girls to have genital examinations in schools. Excuse me? Akasia, number 1, look in the mirror. I don't like you, but I'm pretty certain I could easily identify you as a girl. And I'm 77 years old, and I've been identifying girls the whole damn time. I can promise you that. Okay? And most of us are pretty good at it, so we don't have to strip them down and do a genital examination. The woman is just absurd. And besides AOC, we have something called birth certificates that kind of identify gender at this point. So don't worry about that. It's the stupidest thing she said since a couple years ago. Some of you remember, she lives in an extremely high-priced condo in Washington. And she announced she knew I know I live in a racist neighborhood because we don't have fresh oregano in the supermarket. Where do liberals get this stuff? Okay? I'm an Italian, Alexandria or Sandy, as you went by until you decided to play politics. We don't really need fresh oregano all the time. You know, my mother made spaghetti with dried oregano, so we're going to be okay. So that's the clown world. And the other things, obviously, that ain't clown stuff. And obviously, I'm exercising, but and frankly, you should be too. I'm just saying, you should be too. We have got next November, folks. If we don't take back the Senate and pick up another 10 to 20 seats in the House, and for God's sake, let's hope we get the presidency. God help this country, so let's do this thing.